So what other scary things?
We had some that weren't about being raped by elves.
Okay, what about...
Like the internet, there must be some of it that isn't about being raped by elves.
What about Long Lankin, which is
is scary.
Which is not about being raped by elves. It is one that the aforementioned Jim Murray always introduces as and now one about an invisible child murderer who walks through walls.
It is about being pricked by someone who claims to be your uncle.
Okay. Story. I will attempt a summary of Long Lankin. You can jump in and tell me I'm doing it wrong.
Okay.
Actually, there are different versions, and there are versions that are more or less supernatural. In some versions, Lankin is simply a mason. I mean, not in the sense of a Freemason. I mean, in the sense of the person who built your house.
Yeah.
And in some versions, his name is simply Cruel Lincoln. But the kind of version we're talking about, it begins like Tam Lin, really, with a prohibition. Shut all the windows.
Yes.
Close all the doors. Don't leave any gap for Long Lankin to get in. In some versions, they leave open a window. In some versions, he's basically a Smurf. He crawls into the keyhole. He creeps into the keyhole, or...
I always think of him as, X-Files, the squeezy man out of X...
Oh, yeah.
Eugene Toombs. That's what I think.
He comes in, and what does he do? He goes to the nurse. He's come in to murder the lady of the house, but she's upstairs asleep. So the nurse brings him the baby, and Long Lankin and the nurse prick the baby with pins.
Explicitly in some versions is the false nurse.
The false nurse. She used the false nurse. Whether she was in league with Long Lankin from the beginning, or whether she's just a false nurse, and for reasons which are not made entirely clear, while they're pricking the baby, they gather up his blood in a dish.
Yeah.
And so the lady of the house says, "Why is the baby crying? You're not much of a nurse. I'm paying you to keep him." And then, I've tried him with apples and rattles and all sorts of things. He won't go to sleep. And then the lady of the house says, "Well, I can't come down. That would be ridiculous." And they say, "You've got lots of pretty dresses. Put one on and come down and look after the baby." So she puts on I think it's a golden dress, comes downstairs to quiet the baby down, and they kill her.
Yes.
And who is the remaining person who says it's not my fault? Is it the daughter? Is it just the daughter?
I can't remember.
There's another person there, and the Lord comes home, and the daughter says, "It wasn't me. I didn't kill your wife and your baby. It was the false nurse and Lankin." And so Long Lankin was hung on the gallows to die, and the false nurse was burned in the fire nearby.
Yeah,
Lovely song. Brilliant song.
It's another one of those ones as well where the images are not necessarily just literally what the song's saying as well, because of course the thing is certain things this fact it's called Long Lankin, so I always imagine someone really spindly, because of course it has echoes of lanky.
Yeah.
And even though from what it's saying, it's presumably he's hanged and the nurse is burnt on a stake near the gallows.
Yeah.
The idea of the false nurse and the line about being thrown on the fire nearby always made me think of something supernatural, something like the way changelings sometimes are described as like golemy. Yeah. Golemy type things that you throw on the fire, and that makes me think of that.
I think Long Lankin is, we put it in this context, it's not a fairy tale.
No.
I think it's closest to Gothic. The story doesn't make a lot of sense. Well, there isn't a lot of story there. Where you could, it's piling up atmosphere and sort of imagery. The person who comes in, who can somehow creep into a closed door. The idea that if you wanted to lure a woman downstairs, what you would do would be to complicatedly prick the baby.
Yeah.
Or is it? Is there some older version? Is it hinting that this is magic or a sacrifice?
I don't know.
It doesn't need to be. But I don't know. The whole thing about the song is strange. The fact that the Lord knows that this invisible thing that can come through windows might come, and goes off to look after his horses or go hunting anyway, but says, be careful, that murderer, they might come and murder you. Don't open a window. Right, I'm off now. I mean, it's full of just strange.
Yeah, yeah. I feel bad because I don't feel I've got anything to add to it. Other than it's a genuinely really weird and scary song. My favourite is probably Alistair What's-Name's version.
Ah, yeah. Well, Alistair Roberts,
because he's quite a scary man anyway.
That's in listening to quite a lot of versions. There isn't as much difference. I didn't think in the versions, and mostly using the same tune. There's as well as it is in folk songs, there's variation in the words. I think that the Alistair Roberts, and it's with quite a big band, is fantastic. Yeah, it's got that. Is that odd? Tune he often uses. I don't know how to describe it, but it always seems to be that it's a circular rhythm. There's this sort of going on in the background. People at home can see me moving my hand round to indicate this hypnotic rhythm. And there's something deadpan in Alistair Roberts' delivery. There always is. He's one of our favourite performers.
Yeah, and he kind of. He doesn't quite sing it, but it's closer to singing it than to singing it, I think, as well.
I mean, obviously, the Carthy Swabs version, which takes almost as long as Still I Span does to get through Tam Lin, is fantastic, and is that recording is a very young Martin Carthy. I don't think he does it now.
Yeah,
but I think that is incredibly powerful. Jim Murray's is pretty good.
Yeah.
What do we think of Blackbeard's Tea Party's Lankin, given that we love Blackbeard's Tea Party and they sent me a mug?
To be honest, I think it's quite good. I don't think I liked it the first time I heard it, but I think that was because sometimes with acts I like and songs I like, if they come together I can be expecting too much.
Yeah.
But just listening to them while I was listening to the stuff preparation for this, I quite enjoyed it. I think something I did differently to you is I made sure I listened to the playlist at least once on random, so I wasn't just hearing three different versions of the song all in one. Yeah. And when it just came up on random, it was actually quite an enjoyable version. Your face is.
I'm undecided about it. I mean, hang on. I think. I think Blackbeard's Tea Party are absolutely consummate on the stage. That has not worked the way into the regular set. I mean, I've heard them several times since the album launch, and they played it that. I haven't heard them play it since. When I saw it done live, partly it suffered from the fact that it wasn't one you could hear the lyrics on very well. On the other hand, as a piece of art, this sort of quite loud, very sinister music, and Stuart sort of yelling out the stuff you can't entirely hear, was actually very evocative. Hang on, let me say that it wasn't my most favouriteest thing on their latest album.
Yeah, I think something that is quite good with it, not just the Blackbeard's Tea Party, but the song as a whole, is it actually musically sounds kind of slightly disjointed. It's not got the same smoothness to it that Tam Lin or that sort of thing have.
Because I seem to remember that Jim Murray said that the standard tune was actually too jolly for a horrible tune. It is sort of like and he'd tried to come up with a different tune. But listening to it, his version really only feels like an arrangement. And since most people, I think, well, Carthy is singing the standard tune. He sings it pretty slowly, and he sings it. I think he sings it almost completely unaccompanied. It seems pretty sinister to me.
Yeah, it's always.
And it also seems old. When it's been done very traditionally. Yeah,
it's. And that is one that I find. You asked me whether Tam Lin was scary, and I find Long Lankin actually quite scary. Yeah, I find it, in horror films always the spindly things that I don't like.
Spidery. What? Not spiders. No.
This thing, I'm not scared of spiders. I'm scared of craneflies, which are the spindly version of spiders. So, you know, and I don't like the spiders that look like craneflies as well. You've missed the listeners have missed me doing an impression of something spindly and an impression of a cranefly.
Yes, it's been brilliant.
It's been like my Yarwood.
Well, since we've got this far, the other spooky fairy tale-ish song I thought we could talk about is The House Carpenter.
Yes, you. This was a Bob Dylan one, wasn't it?
Well, there were various versions, but yeah.
But you put a Bob Dylan version on there.
Yeah, but
you want to lead the...
Okay, but it's either The House Carpenter or The Demon Lover. There are different versions.
That sort of threw me, because I couldn't remember what The House Carpenter was.
It's the House Carpenter, The Demon Lover. Very easy. A man comes back from the sea to his lady and says, "I'll come back to marry you, as I promised. I've come back to claim my former vows," he says in some versions. "Oh," she says, that's a bit of a bummer. And she says, "That's a bit of a problem because I'm already married. I married a house carpenter." Or, in the version that Alistair Roberts sings, I think it's a ship's carpenter. But one or the other. And he says, "Oh, I'm quite cross about that because I nearly married the King of Spain's daughter." And they talk for a bit, and she says, "Oh, all right, I'll go off with you." And so she leaves her husband and her babies. They go off in a ship. Now, at this point, the story sort of diversifies. It's quite interesting the way the different things that can happen. In some versions, quite early on, she's there on the ship, and she notices that he has cloven hooves, which sort of gives her the hint that all is not well. In some versions, they're halfway to wherever they're going, and the ship goes down, just sinks, and that's the end. In some versions, the ship sinks, and after the ship has sunk, we have this conversation about, what are those pretty hills over there? That's heaven, you're not going there. What are those scary hills over there? That's hell, that's where we're going. Dylan's version then actually happens before the ship sinks, which I think is rather better. And in some versions, before the ship sinks, the lover who she's gone off with and has got a cloven hoof grows to the size of the ship's mast and breaks the ship's mast, and it goes down. That's basically the story. She goes off with her former love, and he's either a ghost or a demon, and they drown.
It's in many ways it's really, really, really clearly a song written by someone who's been dumped for their girlfriend's ex, isn't it? It's just well, why don't you fuck off with your ex-boyfriend, Graham, then, sort of song.
I don't know how old the song is, but the versions that are mostly sung are definitely American.
Yeah.
There's Dylan is singing a version that is very close to something that's on one of those scratchy American anthology records with someone singing to a scratchy banjo, which I like. I mean, I like the fact that it's clearly a bit older than that, but it's definitely become part of the American tradition. It's a good story. You don't like this one particularly, do you? Yeah, you could say. I mean, there are an awful lot of night visiting ballads. I mean, the folk songs in which the former lover comes back but they're dead. Folk songs in which the person has been implausibly faithful. So I guess where the lady has not been faithful and her dead husband comes back and says, the dead lover comes back and says, right. So we had Dylan's version, we had an Alistair Roberts version. I read two Alistair. We had an Alistair Roberts version, and we had a Farrah Collective version, which was Emily Portman singing. But I would vote for the Bob Dylan version because Bob Dylan's great.
See, the thing is, you're not really allowed to dissect Bob Dylan versions for the same reason I couldn't do the Fairport Tamlin, because almost every folk song you're going to have heard, if there's a Bob Dylan version of, you're going to have heard the Bob Dylan one first.
Yeah, although not in all cases do I think that's the best, because...
Gosh.
No, not on one of the two later Vogue album, Probably Good As I've Been to You, but Don't Hold Me to That, he does Canada-I-O, which I think is a good song. I subsequently heard Mr. Nick Jones's original version, which I don't think it's in question that Dylan is sort of going from the singing of Nick Jones, and there's no comparison. Nick Jones does that one better.
Yeah.
So I don't in all cases hold to Dylan as being the best, but hang on, the fact that it's a bit of song, the fact that it's a spooky song, the fact that it's, I suppose it is from the male point of view. The Dylan's sort of throaty whine suits very well the demon lover saying, "Ha, you're going to hell."
Yeah.
And I think his quite stripped down version of the lyrics. I mean, the other one that was on was another Andy Irving version that you say you're not that crazy about.
I'm not. As I say, the Andy Irving songs I really like, but I find a lot of them don't catch me.
Which are the ones you really like, just out of interest?
Well, Gladiators.
Oh yeah, yeah. So when
I tend to prefer his political ones.
Yeah, when he's more in his Woody Guthrie mode, actually. Yeah. No, I get that. I have heard him do his version of Demon Lover, live, him and a guitar. I think he's a very good ballad singer over any distance. That recorded version, there's quite a lot of background and jiggery pokery. I think he said he's performed it to audiences, and when the Cloven Hoof is singing, people don't know the songs, sort of gasp in astonishment, which I can actually believe when it's him and when it's band and guitar, small environment. I'm telling you a story. That doesn't come across too well on that album recording, but it's a nice version. So, we've talked about Tamlin. We've talked about Long Lankin and the House Carpenter and something else. What else did we talk about? Something else.
Your man, the one you like, Jim Murray and the Rapey Elves.
Oh yes, Heidi Etim. I think we talked about another. Anyway, we've talked about about various traditional Halloweeny fairy tale-y songs.
Yes,
but what we haven't talked about yet is there are a couple of more contemporary bands who are doing their own modern interpretations of fairy tales and fairy tale-like material. I mean, there are probably loads of bands doing that, but there were two we're going to talk about.
The more, and indeed literally in one case, the more Angela Carter-y bands.
The more Angela Carter-y bands, that's a way of putting it.
And indeed, as I say, literally in that one of them has a song that's Hinge of the Year from the EP.
Yeah.
Hinge of the Year, which is...
Well, hang on, let's say who we're talking about.
Is it a night at the circus or not?
Shall I tell you a gap in my literary knowledge?
Have you not read any Angela Carter?
I've seen A Company of Wolves. And I think I once read an essay on fairy tales by Angela Carter, which was all about... she's post-Freudian, but it's all about internal states and monsters inside you, and astonishingly, she thinks that she thinks that the female voice of the fairy tales may have been played down in some of the retellings, or even that the brothers Grimm may not have always written them down totally faithfully.
It always Angela Carter doesn't make me angry. Angela Carter's brilliant, but it's one of those things that increasingly makes me a bit angry at how I was taught at school, because we did Angela Carter as one of our authors at school, But we did her shittest book, and it put me off for probably 15 years. We did, I think it's called The Magic Toy Box, something like that.
It's certainly one of her books.
Oh, it was that one then, which is... see, I'm saying it's the shittest book, but the problem is it's one I'm never going to be able to enjoy on its own merits, because it is absolutely the worst of hers to start teaching with. It's one that you need the whole toolbox to appreciate. You can't come to it without... It's probably the most kind of... all I can think of is the word decompressing and that. But
decompressing is where you spread out time, usually, isn't it? It's where
that's not what I mean. I mean...
Deconstruction?
Deconstruction. That's it's probably the one that is most doing that.
Right.
But the problem is...
As in splitting up the story into its components, or as in making the story sort of contradict itself? Both.
But... I'm feeling really, really self-conscious now. You're doing your humouring face. But the thing is, it's similarly to the Tessa Durbles thing. It's not the one you teach someone when you're trying to teach them the skills involved in appreciating it. It's
for those of us who genuinely haven't. What is the right Angela Carter story to start on?
I'd say the book of short stories that the Company of Wolves one is taken from, because even if you're actually having to start from scratch, you're losing them. You're losing, a maximum of 1 or 2 stories. You can sacrifice 2 of the stories to basically say, right, remember that you're not judging it on this level. You're judging it on this level. Don't fight it, and then hopefully the students would gradually learn the way through. Or even...
Would that also be the one to just read? For those
to be honest, they're all quite good. And if you're already an adult, I was going to say if you're a graduate, but if you're an adult and have read enough books that you're not going to bristle, then they're fine.
Yeah.
And A Night at the Circus would be another one, because that's relatively mainstream. It's not particularly tricksy. Whereas the thing is, the Magic Toy Box is basically someone. It might as well be called the Girl's Big Book of Rape Imagery. It's just designed to piss off teenagers, because it simultaneously seems patronising because so much of it is really obvious and over the top, while they're not. You're not at a point where you can enjoy things for being deliberately. You're not at a point where you've worked out that symbolism and subtext aren't the same thing,
right? And
so it just seems like the weirdest propaganda.
If I remember the movie, in the Company of Wolves, it's initially a man wolf, and the wolf is a symbol of male violence. But then there's a beast of the woman as well that meets the beast in man, although it's said more subtly than that. But I mean, is that the kind of thing?
Oh yeah, it's all that. Broad manner of thing. But of course, Company of Wolves is like one short story from a book of short stories, so it's...
The thing is, slightly, what I was... The Sam Lemon episode, where I became a little incoherent, all the thing I was trying to say about mythology and Orpheus and stuff, that sometimes these interpretations, and that you take a child's... Well, it's not a child, you take a short story, like Red Riding Hood, and you say, well, the wolf is either externalised fear, or it's the beast inside you, and, the grandmother is fear of growing old, or sexuality, and maybe the Red Hood is a symbol of blood or something. And it always seems to be at the end of it, that's a much less good story than the one about the little girl and the scary animal and I agree they need to be reclaimed slightly, because you probably don't want a story that says, or you don't want all your stories to be, and the little girl, the granny gets eaten, and then the little girl gets eaten, but it's all right because a bloke comes and cuts them out. I mean, I can see there's
I think you're conflating 3 or 4 different things at this point.
yes.
That's fair enough. Good.
Sorry,
wasn't expecting that.
sorry. Sorry. What things am I conflating?
Well, I was thinking that the thing is, of course, symbolism is not the same thing as deliberate symbolism or conscious symbolism. So the story that's about the fear of the forest and the story where the red symbolises blood and all that are exactly the same story as the story where the little girl goes to a granny's house and the granny and the girl get eaten but saved by the woodcutter.
Yes, sorry, I'm very tempted to do it again and say, I think I may believe enough in that Sandman reading bollocks.
I don't know, I'm being misinterpreted.
You are being horribly misinterpreted. No, but I wonder if that what is irreducible is being a small child in a dark forest being terrified of a wolf, and the place of your interpretations on it, you're putting in symbols. Freud is only another symbol set, and it's actually a less good symbol set. And then sort of saying, oh, well, we must read this one.
The thing with Freud in this case, it's even more unreliable than it usually is, given that it's kind of not a particularly pleasant thing, but Freud originally was like, oh shit, loads of women are being raped all the time. And then everyone went, no, they're not, these are all pillars of the community. So he went, oh no, they're imagining they're being raped because of X. That's contemporary supported.
Yes, no, yes. The whole Freud and Dora and the little hands, it's enormously complicated. But yes. The thing of whether is it a symbol and is it actually?
But anyway, given that Freud is,
the thing is, there's a later stage where there is a later stage. It's initially I've really uncovered mass child molestation in Vienna. It's then I've discovered masses of Viennese women who have fantasies of being molested by their fathers, and there's then another stage of actually it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because my job is to cure these people of being suicidal or agoraphobic or whatever it is, and whether it really happened or not.
Now, here's the thing that makes me wonder why we've got on this track, because are we going to stop pretending that it's last week?
Yes.
Right. It's not really last week, listeners. We went and now we're recording the second half. But earlier today, I was re-listening to one of the artists we wanted to talk about, Emily Portman.
Yeah.
And I'd previously listened to, was it Heg and the Bear? Or
Heg and the Wolf. Heg and the Wolf. Heg and the Wolf Chorus.
Heg and the Wolf Chorus, who are new to me and are really, really good. And I was actually getting quite depressed because I was thinking, I'm going to have to be more sombre than I usually am in the podcast, because it was just getting me down listening to all the songs and thinking, these songs are all ladies don't go here or you'll be murdered or beaten or raped or in some way maltreated, and realising that, the songs were all either old songs or new songs affecting the style of old songs, but the central messages and central warnings are all stuff that you're still, or you aren't because you're an enormous man, but women are still being told every single day. Don't go there, oh well it's your fault if you went there, etc, etc, etc. And I think it's I wondered whether, again, not consciously, but whether that had ended up the sheer sort of constricted and depressing female nature of the songs had turned your mind to that sort of thing.
Oh, that's really interesting. I think we went. I don't think. Let's leave that hanging in the air. Okay, the two bands we're going to talk about are Heg and the Wolf Chorus,
Yes.
who, if you're not from Bristol, you probably haven't heard of yet, but you're probably going to hear of, because they are... I shall tell you where they are in terms of up-and-comingness. On the current tour, a band called the Moulettes is opening for Bellowhead, and in the Moulettes tour, Heg and the Wolf Chorus are opening for the Moulettes, so that's sort of where they are at the moment.
Well, they are the first track I played from them. You can immediately.
Which was the first track you listened to?
Giant.
Giant,
It's
yeah.
called Giant. I'm
Yeah.
only going to listen to the track called Giant.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
they're on SoundCloud. You were saying.
Yeah, and what they're doing, because I heard them live in the canteen on Sunday night, and they're actually releasing what they're considering to be a trilogy of EPs. So there's a second one. Actually, the first thing was really not much more than an extended single. And there's one just out, which was called Giant. There's one just out called Three Sailors, which has got several songs on it, and then there's going to be another one, but they're going to have similar covers, and that sort of forms a trilogy. There is stuff on SoundCloud. They've also got some very good professionally done videos, which are matching them very well, in that there's quite a lot of imagery. The giant is messing around with perspective and stuff. The Three Sailors is, I don't know whether it's on the Great Britain, but it's being done on a ship, and there's a little bit of animation of boats. But it's not. Sometimes when a small band does that, you go, ooh, but it's actually done really well. But yeah, hearing them on Sunday, I mean, they finished on a Giant song, and it's got that long sort of "I can be a giant, dum-dum-dum" at the end, and the canteen is not always the best space for any band, because it's a bar, so people are there to drink and have the band in the background. But that absolutely got the audience, really won them. So they're really, and they. Well,
So it was just they make me think of Kate Bush.
So glad you said that.
Was that what you?
Because they made me think of Kate Bush, but I hardly know anything about Kate Bush, and I thought you were going to say.
But no, they certainly make particularly the album Ariel she did, that was more a kind of concept album-y type thing, and they certainly sounded. Which, to be honest, given presumably they're not old, presumably they're youngish.
Yeah.
And Ariel came out about 11 years ago, something like that. So that would have been presumably right at the time to hit them in the taste glands.
Yeah. The thing which, certainly listening to the records and watching the videos, I think the other thing that comes over very strongly is, I was going to say, almost in the tradition of stage musical or operetta. There's I don't mean this in a bad way, but there are a couple of the narrative bits in a couple of the songs that actually made me think Phantom of the Opera, which I like. So that's not a bad. It's not a bad thing to say. But actually rooting around online, something which other people have said is choric. Even no, I don't know what I meant by even. Choric, choral, but not a typical folk performance style at all.
No, I mean, I certainly wouldn't be surprised to find out that any of them had been classically trained, because they really have got that, as you say, the operatic sort of strength to the voice and that.
Yeah, I don't know what the background is,
No.
but and not all, but several of the songs are heavily fairy tale themed.
Surprisingly shanty though as well.
Yeah, the new album, because they've got the I forget what the lady's called, Bessie Taylor or something, but I think is an aunt or it's a relative of the singer. And yes, it's this sort of rousing song about the life of an old lady, but done as a.
But almost all of the non-Giant songs were about boats or sailors in some way.
Yeah, the most specifically fairy tale ones. There is one which isn't on either of the albums. I did eventually find a YouTube video which someone had done an animation to, which is called Little Red. There's Maiden, which I think is on the album, which is Rumpelstiltskin.
Yes, very good.
The title song Three Sailors is not a something they've made up, but is a story about three sailors and a sea monster. There's also one that hasn't been recorded, but they always do in the live acts, which is from a children's book, which I didn't recognise, but about, I think it's a little boy who discovers he's descended from dragons and has to go and jump into a volcano to become a dragon again. But it's actually rather sweetish. I can see perhaps why they didn't put it on the album, because it's got quite a lot of rhythm to it, so it's perhaps a little bit like Giant. But can we say anything about their specific take on fairy tales?
They're the only band I can think of that immediately that have done a Giant-based song, and such a kind of evocative one.
Well, you're obviously forgetting Martin Carthy's great... Good God, it's huge! No, I can't...
Martin Carthy isn't a band.
No. He was in lots of bands.
He was in lots of...
No, I can't think of another Giant song. That's not... Giant isn't a specific Giant story. It seems to be someone who's going to become a giant, who wants to become a giant to escape from something, or to...
Yeah, I think he's a metaphorical giant, but
it's metaphorical, but it's
not like Giant.
It's interested in the detail. It's interested in all the details of spines growing, and so yeah, I'm very, very fond of that.
And it has the fee fi fo fum thing in it, but it doesn't sound stupid, does it? It actually sounds quite resonant.
I think it's notable, they are a new band, that their lyrics, the storytelling, is improving. I thought that the Three Sailors story is very, very good. Some of the earlier songs are handling stories, putting stories into lyrics in the way I'm rather afraid I would if I tried. The Red Riding Hood one, lost my way in the woods, thought I heard a wolf crying, and in fact the Rumpelstiltskin, I am a maiden in the castle, I am spinning away, I haven't spun any gold yet, I'm never going to save the day. But the arrangement, the voice is such that actually some of these slightly banal lyrics, I mean, it's a mark of how good the band is that occasionally these bring you down slightly, they take you out of it, but mostly not. I think
because lyrically.
But have we exhausted things to say about Heg and the Wolf Cross, except that they're really very good?
They're very good. They're the ones to watch.
Yeah, I think. Yes. Now.
We love Emily Portman.
We really like Emily Portman.
We were one of about 10 people in a gig once to see Emily Portman.
Yes, but since when we've been at gigs of hers which have been full.
Oh yes. It was. It wasn't her fault that there was no one in the gig. But I really.
Yes, that was the. That was the Louisiana, which is often.
Yes, it was.
But,
I keep getting confused with the Ewan McLennan one.
Yeah, that was in a pub.
That's a now defunct.
That's in a now defunct pub called the Three Sugarloaves, but this was in the Louisiana, which is a very hot Bristol music spot. But for some reason on that particular night, as we've possibly narrated before, there was us, and Jim Moray, and
Peter Lord.
So it's all
a celeb pack.
But we then heard her in the Graham Barge, I think, and it was packed.
Yeah, that was solid.
She appears as the Emily Portman Trio, which is her, Lucy Farrell. Now, if anyone is interested in doing folk family trees, Lucy Farrell is also in a duo, Lucy Farrell and Johnny Kearney, who I first came across almost the first time I heard Bellowhead. They opened for Bellowhead, and as the duo, they are the most understated, laid back, almost not there at all. I mean, very good. It was a very interesting. The audience who'd gone to hear Bellowhead were very divided as to whether they liked them and whether it was take these people off and let's hear something loud. And Rachel Newton, who's in the band called The She, if you've heard them.
Because this is something I think I'm possibly wrong about. But are any of them in that Crow's Bones thing? I think that's just.
I think so.
I think that's the woman who plays with Corinne Pollard, isn't it?
Oh yeah, that's right. I
think I get them confused because it seems like it's in the same category as the Emily Portman.
Yeah,
things.
but the Farrell Collective is basically the Emily Portman Trio plus Alistair Roberts.
Who again I would put in the same category as the Emily Portman stuff. very different musically, but very similar in topics.
Now, that interesting hand movement you did described the Emily Portman trio and Alistair Roberts really well. Could you explain it? Could you try to verbalise it, or would that be like dancing about architecture?
Well, I think I did. I said they're musically not too similar, but in terms of feel and topic,
yes,
they both kind of are quite good at bringing out the sort of mythic nature of a lot of folk songs and things, aren't they? And make things that are kind of worn through with overuse fresh and quite horrible again.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of most of Emily Portman's 2 albums, it's not entirely new material, but there's a couple of traditional songs and reworkings of traditional songs. It's mostly her own songs. And the cat's back.
The cat is back and is using Andrew as a rubbing pole.
I apparently have a ticket to see Dick Whittington at the Hippodrome on Boxing Day with Opera Buddy and some of her cousins, starring Pudsey the Dancing Dog as the cat. The last 2 pantomimes I've been to, admittedly were in Bristol. Admittedly were smaller scale affairs at the Old Vic, not big show business things at the Hippodrome. But the last 2 I've thoroughly enjoyed, so I expect I'll have a thoroughly good time. Do you want to go over there and eat all Mr. Fitzwilliam's mice, and we can Mr. Fitzsimmons' wife? Mr. Fitzsimmons' mice.
The cat's fucked if she's going to do either of that.
So, we're saying Emily Portman. A lot of the songs, either taking very well-known fairy tales and twisting the perspective very often, or doing unfamiliar versions of familiar fairy tales, and quite a lot of them are although our traditional stories are not things you can always recognise. If there is a flaw, it's sometimes they're sufficiently oblique that it can be quite hard. There are a couple of them where I'm not absolutely sure which story it is or what's happening.
I mean, I think some of them aren't just about one. I think they're about several, and I think a couple are kind of, as you say, reactions to stories rather than retellings or.
I mean, the silicate beads. I'm not sure what's going on in that one. I mean, it's evocative, but the best songs on the albums are really remarkable, I think. Which are your favourites?
Oh, gosh. I really... I like a lot of them in different ways, is the thing. I really like... I'm not going to say which are favourites, because it's like saying what your favourite book is. It's never the same answer twice. But today, when I was re-listening to them, I was really struck by a lot of the lyrics in her one about Goddess with the 2 sets of twins. I think, it is the Leda and the Swan, isn't it?
Is that the Hatchling? Is that the song Hatchlings?
Yes.
Itself, yes.
I think I'm possibly, because I was thinking about Angela Carter, so I might be conflating 2 myths, but it's the Helen of Troy creation myth, isn't it? It's the woman who is raped by Zeus and has sex with her husband the king on the same night, and then has 2 eggs, both containing a set of twins, one by the king, one by the god.
Yes, and the lyric is comparing the markings on the shells. And
it manages to make the line, it's something like double-yoked darlings.
Double-yoked darlings.
Which, by all rights and laws of God and man, should be the worst lyric anyone has ever sung, but which actually manages to seem so motherly, so sort of... Yes, if this was the real world, this is exactly what someone's mum would be describing it as. It's fantastic. It's... not one I would have necessarily thought of as being my favourite, but really jumped out at me on this re-listen to. Because I think I often, as I was earlier on in this podcast, I'm always immediately associate her more with the scarier songs.
The lady who baked the children into a pie, which is called Stick or something?
It's something like
Stick Stock, yes.
Because it has them going stick stock on the back thing, which I think I described earlier in this two-parter as genuinely scary, and then couldn't listen to during the week because I was on my own.
and musically, obviously, it's got heavy overtones of The Wicker Man, hasn't it?
Oh yes. So it does make
allusions.
Yes.
So, yeah.
No, I was trying to remember the exact tune, but it's the Oranges and Lemons one. Anyway, but
there's a section where it goes in on the tree. There was a leaf or something, which is very consciously great.
I re-listen to it.
Hang on, there are other moments in some of the things on the records where I think that's reminding me of something. I think that's just an influence. I thought that was deliberately. It
almost certainly is. I think I'm probably just misremembering a thing.
But that's.
What's the one about the skin? Pure skin?
It's called
Pretty Skin.
Pretty Skin,
which is another alarming one.
And there's although there's also, is it Mossy Coat? There's one which is actually called Pretty Skin, but there's another one which is specifically about the woman who is the Selkie, if that's what I mean, and the daughter eventually putting the thing on and throwing away. So
I was thinking of Pretty Skin because I was thinking of the other, because that's the other song with them in the background saying sharp things, basically.
Yes. On the newer album, I think the one that there were actually two on the newer album I really liked, and I was listening to it before, but I was not as familiar with it, so listening to it to research this. But the Cinderella one is splendid, called Ash Girl. Which is both distancing the story by calling her Ash Girl and using the Brothers Grimm story, and in fact I think probably I think it's making it even weirder than the Brothers Grimm story, because I don't actually remember the Brothers Grimm story of dancing into a mother's grave and a mother's grave turning into a magical horse, but maybe it does.
There's certainly a mother's grave element.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I can't remember.
Going to the mother's grave, the birds come down, and it's... In this, it's pecking at a cheek or a breast and making a beautiful red coat out of the blood. Could be some symbolism in there. And the other one, which is not specially a fairy tale, but I thought the Old Mother Eve Liked Apples.
Oh yes.
Don't know if that's a traditional song or a very good.
I really
synthetic...
like that. That's so unrepresentative of anything else.
Much more like what they're doing in the Farrar Collective, actually. Much more folky.
Because it's got that kind of folk Methodism Venn diagram. It makes me think of a Methodist. It makes me think of Methodist hymns as well as folk songs.
Yes, which isn't unreasonable, actually. No. I mean, sorry. When you said folk Methodism, I was trying to think of
not like Methodism that's just done in the garden. Although that's Methodism, isn't it?
Or folkies who weren't who were all on teetotal. But no. I mean, Fisherman's Friends always do a couple of Methodist hymns. And
Chris Wood does a couple as well, doesn't he? Or at least influenced by.
Well, he does Sidney Carter stuff, which is much more sort of recent. I mean, oh well,
you've got to realise, of course, that anything that isn't explicitly C of E to me is Methodist. So
Mr. Wesley himself, in the 1700s, going and preaching to the poor people, who the prevailing Calvinist thinking of the time was, if they're poor, God obviously doesn't love them, so we don't need to preach to them. Took folk songs and popular tunes and gave them religious words. It is said that it's the reason that there are so many different Yorkshire versions of While Shepherds Watch Their Flocks by Night, because the standard Protestant Bible, that was the only hymn in it. But certainly, you can sing, although it's now got a a pretty tune. Probably Yorkshire folks sing it on Ilkley Moor, or probably on Ilkley Moor they sing it while shepherds watch their flocks. You know, while shepherds watch their flocks by night. But some of the things that Chris Wood sings are much more 20th century sort of almost pop hymns of the 60s. But no, so, yes, having mocked you, I know what you mean.
That could be the caption of our podcast, I think.
The Mother Eve song feels very hymnal, and I don't think there's much question that the Copper family, while they're singing the exact same songs that have been in their family for however many generations, it's also the way in which those songs are being performed. Not Methodist, but it's very much a church performance. You might even say a cappella, mightn't you?
You might. But the chorus of Mother Eve is, "Oh, Mother Eve, she liked apples. Adam, he liked them
apples
too." Yeah, and it's just, and it's actually almost a rarity in the songs in that it has a chorus.
Yes,
because they don't tend towards the traditional structure, do they? It's,
no. I'm also very fond of the sort of the lullaby that they finished that second album on, which is also perhaps atypical, but I think it was that time we heard them and there wasn't anyone else there. But the first time I heard that song, they stepped down off the stage and just sung it unaccompanied.
Because that's Where the Wild Things Are one, isn't
it? It references Where the Wild Things.
Well, I think she said it was, explicitly written to be about Where the Wild Things Are.
Yeah, but it's also
one of them's kid really loved Where the Wild Things
Are. But it's also got a wolf but yeah.
Well, yeah, because the little lad's dressed as a wolf in Where the Wild Things Are.
Yes.
Is that expression at me, or because you forgot that he was dressed as well?
I think I had forgotten that. I don't think you would instantly listen to the song and say that song is putting to music of Where the Wild Things Are.
No,
it's certainly got
but
a lovely line.
As soon as someone says it clicks.
And it's a lovely lullaby. It's a lovely melody, and I think. Hang on. I think the fact that they were doing things on that second album that were different from some of the other things was probably a good thing, because no group, however good, wants to be doing another Emily Portman album. On both the albums, there were 2 or 3 songs doing that thing which I associate with the Unthanks, although I don't know if they did. It always seems to be female groups, of the very slow, very enunciated singing of something vocey, which drives me mad. I'm really not fond of that. I've never got the Unthanks.
This isn't about the Unthanks. This is still about Emily Portman and such. But I think it really does. It speaks to quite how good they are as a band. They're a band who could be kind of slightly glibly described as doing songs that are kind of about the inherent savagery of ostensibly kids' stories, and when they decide to do a Where the Wild Things Are song, it's a lullaby, it's a gentle song that they absolutely refuse to make scratchy and in a even okay band that were not as good as that would be their kind of signature scratchy rah song, because it would be the one the audience would know what they were talking about and would have the visuals ready made in their head.
Yes, right. You're right. The obvious way to do a Where the Wild Things Are song would be a Wild Rumpus. They are absolutely right. Where the Wild Things Are, the book. It's a lullaby. It's a go to sleep story.
Exactly.
Yeah. Something interesting, because you said earlier about talking about people talking about fairy tales, how much of fairy tales is telling women, and if they go to a place, a bad thing's going to happen, and then blaming them when it does. And that's unfortunately somewhat contemporary. So.
Yeah, sorry, I just realised as you were saying this, I was sharpening a matchstick, but I'll put the matchstick down.
One of the things that Emily Portman does very well, they don't... they tend not to rewrite the stories. I mean,
No.
the Egg and the Wolf chorus, Red Riding Hood, it sort of becomes the wolf is within me, and I have to make friends with the wolf. They tend to do the story straight, but they pick characters and they humanise the characters. So even if women who bad things have happened to, they're people. Actually, I don't think we mentioned, but the one, I forget what the song is called. It's called Tongue Tied.
The donkey skin one, isn't it?
No. Tongue Tied is the story is the girls' brothers have been turned into ducks or something, and as fairy tales are, they can only be turned back again if she weaves them shirts made out of stinging nettles with her bare hands, and doesn't say a word while she's doing it. And the song, which is tongue tied, I'm bound, and my hands are hurting, and all of this, it's not changed the song.
No.
And then you could still say, well, that's another, oh yeah, men get saved by women having a terrible time. But it's made it from her point of view, which is a nice thing to do. But yeah, now the one where they do somewhat change the ending, which is a possibly the first song that turned us onto them. I don't know. But
You're talking about Hyde.
But Hyde.
But yes, Hyde, which is...
No, I just remembered that time of the barge wasn't the first time I heard them, because I heard them in a tent in Bath.
That's where you told me to go.
Yes, I had a tent in Bath. They weren't opening for Martin Carthy, but they were part of the same program.
Yeah.
The people, and I don't think what Mike Waterson song they would have sung, but they sang a Mike Waterson song. And Carthy came on and played the guitar in them, which I always thought,
cool.
That's really nice. Grand old man coming in and playing along with anyway. But I remember, I think that's the only time I've heard her sing Hyde live. And she actually introduces this by saying, this is the one where you go to traditional singers and say, teach me this song, I want to learn this song. And I say, nah, stay away from Hyde. Because well, what's the plot of the traditional ballad?
Yes. It's
like Taming of the Shrew,
yes.
only it's like a more sexist version of Taming of the Shrew.
Yes. There's a certain amount of beating people
Farmer has a wife.
pretty much to death.
A farmer has a wife who won't do what he tells her, and what he wants to do to a nagging wife is beat her. I mean, like flog her, not beat her up. Like that makes a difference, but I mean, it does in the story. And but he thinks I can't do that because her family would be annoyed.
Yes.
So what I'll do is I'll skin my own horse, fling it over her, and then I'll beat that because they can't stop me from beating my own horse.
Yes.
And I don't know whether he beat. I'm guessing in the traditional song, he probably doesn't beat her to death. She probably obeys him ever afterwards. But in this, he beats her to death. Now, when I first heard her do this, I was slightly not convinced. I thought either don't sing the song, or do it in the way that people sometimes sing these ghastly anti-Semitic songs, and where you can just, it's a piece of the tradition, let's just do it. I was dubious about adding this bit at the end saying, oh, by the way, we don't agree with this, children. Listening to it again, no, I'm completely wrong. It's a brilliant, because it's obviously a second song that's been put on the end of the first song. It's a song and a reply song. And what happens?
Well, I'm sorry, I've crashed slightly because I've crashed into the other thing I was going to say about it. It also really very heavily references the Two Magicians.
Oh, yes, it does, doesn't it?
Because I think while I absolutely love the song Two Magicians, I can see why other people might not like it.
Two Magicians, the blacksmith is either literally or metaphorically chasing the lady he wants to marry, and
it's a heavy metal style magical duel that ends with someone being magically forced into marriage.
Yes, the refrain of that, you're absolutely right. It's hide woman is bide woman bide. There's nowhere you can hide. For the lusty smith will be your something. Neil. The Two Magicians goes, and he said, "Bide, lady, bide. There's nowhere you can hide. The husky smith will be your love. That'll pull down your pride." She says, "I'd rather I was dead and cold, and my body laid in the grave, than a lusty, dusty, cold blacksmith my maiden's head should have." Whereas the Emily Portman song Hide goes, "She had gold, she had grace, hide woman hide, but she's never learned a lady's grace, she won't lay down her pride." And then it finishes where and I have to say, I don't think this was bright. I think she was doing very well turning into a ship, and then he turned into a captain, and she turned into a fly, and he turned into a spider. I think the thing of turning into a bed, then she turns into an eiderdown, he turns into an eiderdown.
I think that's so that people than me can go, oh, well, so there was an implicit consent at the end. Whereas if she had, my beloved spouse suggested turning into a bee made of wasps.
Yes,
which
but it finishes.
There's really nothing you can.
It finishes, and the lusty smith something or other. The lusty smith had her for all her mighty pride.
Yeah,
I think that within the folk song canon, the Two Magicians, it always feels to me more like courting than than rape. Now you can discuss when it's not an equal relationship. But I don't think that's one of the massively offensive songs, and it's got such a good tune.
And it's wizards, so there's a limit to how it offended.
But you're absolutely right. The refrain in that is "Hide, woman, hide," and this is "Hide, woman, hide. I will lay down your pride."
And to me, it means it explicitly feels like an answer song. It feels like something done by someone who isn't comfortable with two wizards.
Okay.
And who says, well, this is what actually happens if you have someone kind of married against their will and against their terms. Yeah.
What Emily Portman does is the farmer having thrashed his wife to death. It's clever of them that she just comes back. But she and the horse come back to life. He hears hoofbeats, and it's this thing which is a horse with a woman's head, isn't it?
I've never visualised it completely.
And the line, which is it's almost as if it's the horse that's taking it.
It's his mistreated animals are taking them.
Yeah, so the horse actually says, I've served a master all my life, and now you've treated me like a wife, which is, I think, rather a good. And so actually, I think that's really powerful. Actually,
it's a fantastic
singing
song.
The awful sexist song, and then putting the woman's vengeance. No, I flip round over that for it being a bit unnecessary to it having created a new song. I've never heard any. I don't think it would. I've never heard any traditional version of that. The other thing we probably can't talk about this at the length it deserves. Maybe we'll have to do a separate podcast at some point. But she also does a version of The Two Sisters.
Oh, yes, because that was one I was going to mention earlier when we were saying about... I was saying making new things, kind of... making old things fresh and raw.
Yeah.
Because it's the only time I've ever heard it where you go, oh, yes, this is about a murder. And about how... It's the only time that the making a musical instrument out of someone's bones hasn't just kind of slid over the top of my brain.
Okay.
Because she really does make it like something out of Hellraiser,
I think the thing is she keeps it short. She doesn't keep the song short, she keeps that part of it short. For anyone who doesn't know this song, it's another child ballad. Two sisters are courted by a knight, and the one who is spurned by him pushes the other one in a river where she drowns. She sails down the river to a miller's dam. In some versions, the miller just fishes her out, takes her jewellery and throws her back in again, and that's the end.
That's bad when that's the less worrying.
In fact, that may be the original version. The version may originally have just been a song called the something like the Miller's Murder or something. But in this version, in the best versions, the miller, having taken her stuff, throws her back in, and a minstrel or a fiddling fool, or according to Martin Simpson, in some versions a banjo player, comes and makes a musical instrument, a harp, out of her body. And I think why that is slightly more shocking in this one is that I think she just says he made a harp out of her breastbone whose sound could melt a heart of stone. And I guess you could actually imagine someone making a harp out of her breastbone.
I think that's it. You can
there are quite a lot
it.
of versions where it's more fairy tale-y. She made, he made fiddle pegs out of her fingers and strung it with her hair, and it's become more fanciful.
Yeah. Yeah, whereas this you can visualise the prop, you can...
And also the actual drowning is slightly more... there's more of her calling out to her sister, "Sister, I'm drowning," and her sister saying, "Yes, I know you are."
Have I conflated two songs again, or is this the one with the oleander?
Yeah, this is there are different refrains, but this is the oleander rolling is the refrain. Other versions, it's "Oh the wind and the rain," and there are lots. Everyone has one. Now the thing I have not found out, and I would like to know, is most of the versions then go, and the minstrel takes the harp and plays before the king, and the only song the harp will play is to accuse the sister of being the murderer. In Emily Portman's version, the harp says, "Yonder sits my sister the queen, yonder sits my lover the king." The knight who came to woo her is the king now, and the sister is the queen. Other versions is my father the king, or just the king. I would love to know whether she's found a version where the knight has specifically gone on to become king, or the knight was the king in disguise, or whether she's just spotted that making that change improves the story, because it improves the story so much that is so rounded now that I think she's. I mean, I think it's a beautiful arrangement. It's all whispery and ethereal.
It's very liquid, isn't it?
Liquid, but not like. Actually, I was going to say we were horrible about Pentangle last week.
No more than they deserve.
No. Sorry, Pentangle are often fantastic.
Oh yes, but for that song.
Yeah, but I mean they do a very good version of it. But I was going to say that this version is doing all that liquid ethereal stuff, but without turning into Pentangle or Clonard or any of those people. It's a great arrangement, but it also the treatment, the version, I just think produces the two sisters as just one of the great stories ever.
It is fantastic, and I mean, this you were contrasting it with Pentangle's Tam Lin, but I think I was saying earlier about them being all the songs being so evocative. There's never really any production nonsense, is there? It's all just the shape of the words and the rhythm of the songs.
Oh, one of the things which is remarkable about hearing them live is how much it sounds like the record. I mean, how much in a small venue where, I mean, it's got a really good sound man, but there's no jiggery-pokery going on. They can come up on the stage, and the balance and the voices and everything, it's just like hearing like the record only live. You know, it's
it wouldn't always be what you wanted, but with these, it works because the record is so intimate sounding. It's so close.
Talking about Heg and the Wolf and Emily Portman, given us any slants on fairy tales or what fairy tales are that we haven't got to before? I think
the problem we've certainly come away with stuff to chew on. I think the I know I can seem very very everything looks like a nail. But even from what I was saying about Tam Lin last week, I hadn't really thought of just quite how female Emily Portman Trio is, even though it's three women.
No, I know what you mean.
I mean, there's a difference between a band of three women and a band that are, it's all being bought, being sold, being murdered, being controlled. It's all birth and washing corpses and you know. The problem is describing it like that. I feel like there was a lot of feminist readings of fairy tales as product going round about 15, 20 years ago, and I think that poisoned the well for quite a long time, to the point where I'm reluctant to describe a band that does something superbly and kind of perspective-changingly well in those terms, because I don't want people associating it with, you know, Anne Rice pretending to be Angela Carter, or your woman who did Mrs. Avalon pretending to be a human being, and all that sort of thing. You know,
it's just been just one too many children's books called the Brave Princess Rescues the Beautiful Knight or something. Just straight reversals, which aren't.
Oh yeah. You never read them when you were a 9-year-old girl.
That's very true.
Hair.
That's very true. That is very, very true. No, actually, yeah, it's a separate subject area. I was going to say, so provided it's all right for guys to want to be the handsome heroic knight, if that's what they want to be.
Yeah,
I think,
everyone.
I think the
yeah, that's why I always get annoyed when people moan about. Tokenism and things in kids programs, because the point is just to have everyone represented as everything.
Yeah. And I think you say. I think fairy tales are. I think all that mothers and birth and everything. I think that is all in fairy tales, because mostly, I'm guessing, it wasn't dads who were passing these things on.
No,
I mean there may be some of these stories. Maybe you may be able to see a sort of heroic military dragon slaying thing, but an awful lot of them are christenings and godmothers and.
And the thing is, people telling them at the times when they're formed are going to have been cross old women.
Yeah,
because they're the only ones who are going to have time to do it or not be dead.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, the other thing I would just drawing out of the two groups we've been talking about, and it is perhaps Sandman reading, bollocks.
Apologise.
Sorry, no. I just think
the doth students of the world.
is how vibrant fairy tales actually are. That these are stories that someone can take and reinterpret and do things with, and it stays the same story. I do think that that's not quite as poncy as it sounds. I think
I should have said freeform gaming playing bollocks, shouldn't I?
Anyway, look, I would like to apologise to listeners in that we've now just done a whole podcast of us both liking the same group.
It does happen more often
than you think. But,
and generally, if there's differences, it's because you think someone is the second coming of music, and I think they can hold a tune.
or because I think someone is wonderful and you think they're fascists, or no, our tastes overlap more differently than they are.
Yes, otherwise we wouldn't go to concerts. There's
a sea shanty band in one of the pubs on Friday night if you want to come and listen to sea shanties.
I have, as I'm sure Emily Portman is writing a song even at this moment, I am bound by household duties. I don't get to gad about like some of our bachelor friends. And we didn't even say anything. There's no Bonfire Night folk music, is there?
Well, yes, I would have said that if you're looking for a definition of something which is living, serves a purpose, it's not regarded as that people who sing it do not regard it as being important, but everybody knows it, and it's certainly not written down, then I would have thought that one of the few surviving folk songs is a Bonfire Night folk song.
And it also gives me cause to be mildly offended as well, so that's good.
Well, yes. Although the version we know, which he says is just pleased to remember the 5th of November, gunpowder treason and plot. I know of no reason why gunpowder treason. But the original version actually went. Oh, it was specifically the papist. It was specifically the papist treason and plot.
Oh, they probably sing it at Lewes.
They probably do. Yes. You know John Lennon's song "Remember," which is all about his childhood and all the stuff John Lennon always writes about. And he obviously couldn't think of a way of finishing it, and it finishes "Remember the 5th of November," and the point at which everyone was reading rubbish into Lennon songs, or the American Beatles enthusiasts were saying, "The 5th of November, is this some revolution?" And there's that great true crime comic. I've talked about true crime comics before. There's where they in the 50s were actually very careful about what they could print. But it turned out if you did historical crime, then it had educational value. And so there's a nice Simon and Kirby true crime about the gunpowder plotters, and it begins with a scene in England. This is a crime that the English have never forgiven, and it's all these angry English people in bowler hats and umbrellas lynching Guy Fawkes in effigy, and you think,